I'm glad to have this chance to show what we have been doing with Altmetrics back at Aalto University and some thoughts about the future. This is the present status of Altmetrics back home. When you go to our portal, we have still the classic on-site portal. You will see the familiar donut by the British Altmetric company whenever there's something to show. And that's it. At the moment, there's no official plans to buy any third-party software on Altmetrics. And we don't use the Altmetrics as such as a metrics way. It's just an information on there. That said, there have been inquiries and interest in departmental level and on researchers themselves to get an overview how they are doing Altmetrics-wise. And to respond to this sort of wishes, first of all, we have been done some quick and dirty solutions, taking out a standard pure report from research outputs as HTML, and mimicking the behavior on our portal. So we are embedding the same JavaScript on the HTML table that's on our portal. So it's basically one DOI on every row of the table. And there's numerous, endless ways of doing this programmatically. And if you are interested on that, my GitHub repo, there are some examples. The result is not pretty, but it does the job. But when you want to have something prettier or something more, something more, then you need to do a sort of web application. And back in the early 2000s, when the term mashup was popular, when the web was already mature enough, people started to combine data from different sources. And in our case, the Altmetrics mashup would be taking data from Pure, the research output to the metadata, the active organization, and then adding Altmetrics to this. And during the past 5 years or so, I've been experimenting with this, doing half a dozen sort of experiments or demos on our publications, in average once a year. And some screenshots from these. And you might notice that the layout looks similar. And that's because behind there's an R language platform called RShiny, and a package called RShiny dashboard, which gives the layout. There's a navigation bar on the left where you can put filters, and like in this case, you can change the dimensions on the graph, the axis. In the middle is the canvas where you can output graphs or tables or what have you. And there's also the sort of KPI boxes or value boxes where you can put some sort of key figures. But all of this is about sort of figures and numbers and comparing counts. But Altmetrics can be so much more, because basically it's sort of human reaction on the web towards someone else's work. And that's why it's important and interesting to see the actual source. What was said, in which manner, who was this who claims she to be, and so on. And along these lines, the latest experiment is trying to accomplish something about that. The layout is still similar, but you notice that now there's a big table on the canvas. And these are tweets to our publications starting 2017. And so here you will see filtered, when a user filters by the organization, what tweets have been tweeted on their publications, what was the actual text, who was the tweeter, how many followers, and so on, and then links to the actual tweet on Twitter's site and and link to our portal. So to do something like this, we first need the data. And two sort of obvious ways to get data from PR is from standard reports, first to Excel, and then from Excel to your programming platform, or via the APIs. Some examples of my old reports where I'm taking out and grouping by managing organizational unit, and then some metadata. And notably, one of them is DOI. And another report on the organization. And because I'm building a hierarchy on the application, then I need to have not just the unit, but also its parent. But the more sort of fun way to do getting the data is use the new REST API. You may already be familiar with the sandbox on your installation, how to play with it once you have authorized yourself and found the correct endpoints. And then you can start wondering whether the HTTP GET request is enough or whether you need the POST, and in which format you will like to have the response. We don't have time to take a look at my code, but if you're interested, there's a link. My number one workhorse back at office is R, and that's why most of the code is in R. But I'm also learning Python, so there's some small stuff of Python as well. Right, so now we have the basic data. Then we are adding the Altmetrics. And here the latest experiment was built on, where I was using the Open API by Crossref, named Crossref Event Data. And with my set of DOIs, and I ask Crossref to return the tweet IDs that have been related to our publications. And with that data set in hand, I then turn towards Twitter API and ask, please return me all the tweets behind these tweet IDs. And again, some code. And then the interesting part, to building the application. When you are doing building the R-Shiny dashboard, there are basically 3 steps. Designing the layout is the easiest part. If you are happy with the sort of basic building blocks, there's a slight learning curve in reactive expressions, meaning you need to define when the user clicks or filters or does something in here, what happens elsewhere in the data. But there's lots of examples and hints and helpful people out there to help you if you get stuck. The one where you are on your own is the business logic, so to say, because you know your data and you know what you want to do with it. And if you're wondering what sort of layouts can be done, just Google or Bing the picture search R-Shiny dashboard, yeah, and you will get enough examples of how they might look like. And then the final step, you will need to share, to publish or deploy your application. And there are a couple of options. If you are lucky, you will find an R server, and you will need an R server technology here. You will need it. You will find it in your own university or in your technical team or wherever. But if you are not happy, then you need to go out shopping and finding a hosting service. I have listed here the US company RStudio, because that's where my site is residing. But nowadays, there are also other companies who are offering these services. The RStudio, by the way, is one of the big players in the R world, because it builds and maintains the #1 IDE among our developers, with the same name, RStudio, and it also develops these R packages of which R-Shiny and R-Shiny Dashboard are examples. So it's a sort of central player. In my case, because I am sort of a data nerd in my private life as well, I like to sort of dig into open datasets and open APIs and build applications and blog about them. I decided that I can host these half a dozen Aalto University applications on my site. It's not optimal and it cannot last for long, but that's the situation. Quickly, just to show what the Shiny Apps I/O gives you as statistics. It's a simple bar graph showing the total usage of in hours on my applications within some timeline, a time frame. And here is 1 month. You can't see it, but the figure is 50, so 50 hours in total. Right, so I would say that once you know R, building this sort of applications is not a big deal. You will deliver quickly. But there are sort of drawbacks, and they are mostly related to the sort of IT policy or IT architecture. Because to my knowledge, our ecosystems are not that common in universities, at least not in administration. And when this is the case, then there's a sort of trade-off between getting the R server technology in university or finding it somewhere else. Maintaining a server is not trivial. It's costly, but also hosting might bring you in the worst case, sort of vendor lock. Just a minor technical question mark or minus mark is that at Shiny Apps I/O, where my site is, there is no persistent storage, meaning that if you are building a, say, database-based application, you need to find your database somewhere else, which sort of adds a layer of complexity to your application. And then finally, what the future might hold. One thing is clear, that the life cycle of our portal is coming to its end, and that might be a good moment to sort of reflect what to do with it with Altmetrics at this point. We'll see. If I were to sort of continue with these sort of experiments I've been showing you, then I would need to take a step towards production, and that's a big step. Because first of all, I would need to take a sort of hard look on the server, where to have it, then on the code to make it more robust, more error-free, more modular. I would need to think about performance and more automation, more scheduling, because at the moment the process is more or less manual. But the sort of biggest question mark in the future is about our ecosystem at Aalto University. The R as a programming language is already here as such, and via many sort of hybrid platforms like Anaconda, Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebooks, Power BI, etc. But the R servers are not here yet. So we'll see what happens. Interesting times. That was it. If you have something to ask me, I'm happy to answer, but if not, then thank you, and let's keep in touch.